You've seen the horror movie Silent Hill, right? That creepy town always covered in this weird, chilling fog. Well, the real terror behind that story? It isn't the fog. It's fire. A real fire in a real American town that's been burning underground for, get this, over 60 years. So, did you know the real Silent Hill is actually in Pennsylvania? Yeah, no joke. That ash-covered nightmare town from the movie, it's a real place. Or, well, it was. The guy who wrote the screenplay didn't just pull it out of thin air. He actually went there, to a place in America that is literally being eaten from the inside out by a fire that just won't stop. That place is Centralia, Pennsylvania. Just a small mining town sitting on top of a coal fire that nobody can put out. It's been burning down there, under their feet, since 1962. But the really scary part, the true horror of this story, it isn't the smoke. It's what happened when the ground itself started to turn on the people living there. All right, so let's get into it. To really get into the horror of Centralia, we need to go back in time to a day that was supposed to be about love and candy hearts, but instead it turned into an absolute nightmare. The day was Valentine's Day, February 14th, 1981. Now, for almost 20 years, this underground fire had just been kind of a nuisance, a weird background problem for the town. But on this day, it showed everyone its true, monstrous face. Imagine this. You're 12 years old. Your name is Todd Domboski. You're just playing in your grandma's backyard, when all of a sudden, the ground beneath your feet just liquefies. It turns to this hot, steaming mud, and a hole opens up, and you're falling. And we're not talking about a little pothole here. This was a massive, steaming fissure, 150 feet deep. That's like a 15-story building straight down into the burning, toxic heart of the mine. So as the earth is literally trying to swallow him, this cloud of hot, poisonous gas, we're talking lethal amounts of carbon monoxide, just explodes out of the hole around him. He's starting to black out, but with his last bit of strength, his fingers catch on a tree root sticking out of the dirt. Incredibly, his cousin saw what happened, ran over, and managed to haul him out just seconds from death. The headlines said it all. The ground tried to eat a child. I mean, can you imagine? That was the moment of truth for everyone in Centralia. They finally realized they weren't just living near a fire, they were living on top of a ticking time bomb. So how in the world does something like this even happen? How do you set an entire town on fire from the inside out? Well, the answer is kind of tragic and honestly almost stupidly simple. Okay, so picture this. It's May 1962. The town wants to clean up an old landfill pit for Memorial Day. So they hire some volunteer firefighters to do what they always did, burn the trash. Totally normal. They light the fire, let it burn down, and then they soak it with water. Job done, right? Wrong. They thought it was out, but deep down, a few embers were still glowing. And those embers found a little unsealed hole at the bottom of the pit, and they trickled down right into a huge, sprawling labyrinth of abandoned coal tunnels. The embers hit a massive vein of anthracite coal, and poof, a fire was born that would never go out. You'd think they'd jump right on that, but no. For the next 2 decades, the town and the government just treated this fire like it was no big deal. But every single time they tried to stop it, it was just a total disaster. A perfect storm of bad luck, bad planning, and of course, politics. First, they tried to literally dig the fire out, but the fire just moved faster than their machines. Then they tried to suffocate it, dumping tons of sand and ash into the mines. But the tunnel network was so huge, it was like trying to plug a sieve. The fire always found a way to breathe. The last best idea was to dig a huge trench, a fire break, to stop it in its tracks. But that got so tangled up in red tape and money arguments that by the time they were ready to start, the fire had already crossed the line. It was always one step ahead. And while all this was happening on the surface, an invisible killer was creeping up from below. Carbon monoxide. It started leaking up from the ground right into people's basements. Families would wake up in the middle of the night feeling sick, dizzy, totally confused. Their CO detectors would be screaming, forcing them to run out into the freezing cold. Their own homes were literally trying to poison them in their sleep. But the real oh my god moment came in 1979. The town's mayor also happened to own the local gas station. One day, he goes to check his underground gasoline tanks. He dips a stick in to measure the fuel. When he pulls it out, the stick is hot to the touch. The gasoline in his tanks was being slow cooked to 172 degrees Fahrenheit.
That's when it hit them. The fire wasn't just near the town anymore. It was directly underneath them.
So this fire didn't just crack the ground, it completely shattered the community. Because as the danger got more and more obvious, the town didn't come together. It tore itself apart, fueled by fear, by mistrust, and a really dark conspiracy theory. Basically, the town split into two camps. On one side, you had the movers. These were the folks who were looking at the scientific data, feeling the effects of the gas, and they were pleading with the government to buy them out so they could just leave. But on the other side, you had the stayers, and they believed the whole thing was a giant hoax, a conspiracy cooked up by the government to scare them away from their homes and get its hands on the billions of dollars worth of coal sitting right under their feet. And it got ugly. We're talking a mini civil war. Neighbors who had been friends for their entire lives suddenly became enemies. People were waking up to find their tires slashed. Some people even had Molotov cocktails thrown at their houses. The town was burning from below, for sure, but it was also burning from the inside out. And this is where we get to the really chilling question that still hangs over Centralia. Was this fire really unstoppable? Or were all those government failures not failures at all? Could it have been a deliberate plan to just let the town burn so they could get their hands on all of that valuable coal? In the end, it almost doesn't matter if it was incompetence or a conspiracy, because the government came to a final decision. The fire couldn't be stopped. The only thing they could do was wipe the town off the face of the earth. And the death of Centralia wasn't quick. It was slow. Death by paperwork. In 1983, Congress finally put up $42 million to help people move. Then in 1992, the state just condemned every single house left standing. And then in 2002 came the final nail in the coffin. The U.S. Postal Service deleted its zip code, 17927. Just gone. As far as the government was concerned, Centralia no longer existed. If you go there today, Centralia is a ghost town, just a grid of empty, overgrown streets. But it's not totally empty. There are still a few people holding on. About 5 residents are still there. They won a legal battle to live out the rest of their lives in the only homes they've ever known. And that fire? The one that started with a little bit of trash back in '62? Oh, it's still burning. And scientists estimate there's enough coal down there to keep it burning for another 250 years. It just makes you wonder, doesn't it? In a place like that, where the ground itself can open up and try to eat you, where an entire town can be erased, what other secrets are still down there burning away deep beneath the silent streets of Centralia?